7,000 miles between the islands, where I grew up and the place you're from. Different ocean, different kind of mountain, different language under the same sun. But the same sun is the thing that gets me. Every morning when the light comes through, something in the particular angle of the morning light reminds me of you. And the distance that the world put between us, measured out in flight hours and in time zones, doesn't feel as real as what connects us in the particular and in the most alone.
Moments of the ordinary living, when the distance collapses into nothing, and the 7,000 miles becomes the feeling of the closeness more than anything.
La distancia entre nosotros es solo una medida de geografía, not a measure of the actual closeness of the souls, the intimacy of two people who found each other across the ocean and the language barrier, and the different ways of saying things, and the cultural and the interior differences that should have made the finding of each other less than probable. But the universe is not impressed by what the geographers call impossible. It just routes the finding differently, takes the scenic road through the unlikely. And the 7,000 miles was just the universe arranging things precisely. The distance between us
Was always smaller than the number of the miles would say.
the distance between us
Was always smaller than the flight that separates the day.
the distance between us, the distance between us
It's just the geography of how we met. The distance between us,
distance between us,
distance between us is the smallest thing between us, yeah.
every mile that sits between our mornings, every hour of the time zone warning. Distance between us was never really the distance at all. When we think about the 7,000, all the water between the islands, between me yard and where you're waking, 7,000 miles the ocean making. Between the two of us, me realize that the ocean is the same one binding the whole Caribbean and the Latin coastline into one, the ocean finding its way to both of us eventually, in the salt air and the sunrise. And the distance isn't 7,000 through the water, through the same eyes of the same ocean, watching both of us from the same enormous body of the blue that holds the whole Atlantic. Distance isn't really that ungodly. For the same ocean touching both shores, the same light reaching both of our doors, the same moon reflecting on the water of the island and the Latin quarter of the world. And if the same moon watches over both of us from the same ocean, then the 7,000 miles collapses into one shared astronomical devotion.
And I've been thinking about the distance, not in miles, but in the particular
quality of the missing that arrives in the most irregular moments of the day, not always at the obvious times you'd expect, but in the Tuesday afternoon, when something catches the correct frequency of what reminds you of the person, and the distance suddenly is everything that it wasn't for the longest instant of the ordinary living, and the distance reasserts itself in the Tuesday and the missing, and you set the feeling on the shelf.
Reveal the next particular and a remarkable Tuesday, when the distance comes back visiting, and there's nothing you can do or say to make it leave before it's ready to return to the background where it lies. And the distance is the measure of how much the love already gives
of itself across the miles, of itself across the ocean, of itself across the tones, and of itself with full devotion to the finding and the staying found across the 7,000 miles of water of the same moon. Distance between us still astounding
in its smallness when we're together, in its vastness we're apart.
The distance between us is just the measure of the size of what connects the heart.
Misma luna,
Misma luna,
mismo mar,
mismo mar,
misma luna,
misma luna,
near and far.
distance between us is smaller than it seems. 7,000 miles between the islands where I grew up and the place you're from. Different ocean, different kind of mountain, different language under the same sun. But the same sun is the thing that gets me every morning when the light comes through. Something in the particular angle of the morning light reminds me of you, and the distance that the world put between us, measured out in flight hours and in time zones, doesn't feel as real as what connects us in the particular and in the most alone moments of the ordinary living, when the distance collapses into nothing and the 7,000 miles becomes the feeling of the closeness more than anything.
La distancia entre nosotros es solo una medida de geografía, not a measure of the actual closeness of the souls, the intimacy of two people who found each other across the ocean and the language barrier and the different ways of saying things and the cultural and the interior differences that should have made the finding of each other less than probable. But the universe is not impressed by what geographers call impossible.
It just routes the finding differently, takes the scenic road through the unlikely. And the 7,000 miles was just the universe arranging things precisely.
Distance between us was always smaller than the number of the miles would say.
The distance between us was always smaller than the flight that separates the day. Smooth Latin waving, emotional yawning. The distance between us, the distance between us is just the geography of how we met. The distance between us, distance between us is the smallest thing between us, yeah. Every mile that sits between our mornings, every hour of the time zone warning. The distance between us was never really the distance at all. When we think about the 7,000, all the water between the islands, between the yard and where you're waking, 7,000 miles the ocean making. Between the two of us we realize that the ocean is the same one binding the whole Caribbean, the Latin coastline into one. The ocean finding its way to both of us eventually, in the salt air and the sunrise. And the distance isn't 7,000 through the water, through the same eyes of the same ocean, watching both of us from the same enormous body of the blue that holds the whole Atlantic. Distance isn't really that ungodly. For the same ocean, touching both shores, the same light reaching both of our doors, the same moon reflecting on the water of the island and the Latin quarter of the world. And if the same moon watches over both of us from the same ocean, then the 7,000 miles collapses into one shared astronomical devotion.
And I've been thinking about the distance, not in miles, but in the particular quality of the missing that arrives in the most irregular moments of the day, not always at the obvious times you'd expect,
but in the Tuesday afternoon, when something catches the correct frequency of what reminds you of the person and the distance, suddenly is everything that it wasn't for the longest instance of the ordinary living. And the distance reasserts itself in the Tuesday and the missing, and you set the feeling on the shelf. Until the next particular and unremarkable Tuesday, when the distance comes back visiting, and there's nothing you can do or say to make it leave before it's ready to return to the background where it lives. And the distance is the measure of how much the love already gives of itself across the miles, of itself across the ocean, of itself across the time zones, of itself with full devotion to the finding and the staying found across the 7,000 miles of water of the same moon. Distance between us still astounding, in its smallness when we're together, in its vastness when apart. The distance between us is just the measure of the size of what connects the heart.